Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're stepping into 17th century alchemy with a text that's, well, a mouthful. It's called La lumière sortant par soi-même des ténèbres. Translates to light coming forth from darkness itself. And our guide through this, none other than Marc-Antonio Crassellame.
And what's really cool about Crasselame is he wasn't just your typical alchemist obsessed with turning lead into gold.
No, so we're not diving into the get-rich-quick schemes of alchemy today.
Not quite. Crasselame was a different breed. He saw alchemy as this mirror reflecting the creation of the universe itself. We're talking cosmic scale stuff here.
Okay, now you've got me hooked. How does he connect something as, well, kind of magical as alchemy to the creation of the entire universe?
He talks about this thing called Iliest, or sometimes Heil. Think of it like primordial chaos. It's actually kind of similar to the Big Bang Theory, but with a distinctly alchemical spin.
Okay, I'm following so far. Primordial chaos, Big Bang. Go on.
Right. So Crasselame believed that just like the universe sprung from this formless state, the alchemist starts their work with raw, undifferentiated matter.
So the alchemist becomes like a mini creator, harnessing the same forces that birthed the cosmos.
Exactly. It's a bold statement. This is precisely how Crasselame elevates alchemy beyond just a quest for riches, you know?
He's saying it's bigger than that.
Exactly. The alchemist, in Crasselame's view, is someone who gets it, who understands these fundamental principles governing the universe, and importantly, can actually work with them.
Which, of course, makes me think of the Philosopher's Stone. If we're drawing these epic parallels, what does Crasselame have to say about this legendary substance, this key to immortality, and, let's be honest, turning lead into gold?
Ah, the Philosopher's Stone. You know, it's interesting you bring that up, because for Crasselame, it wasn't just about material transformation, the kind of thing that makes headlines.
There's more to it.
Oh, absolutely. He describes it as the culmination of this whole alchemical process, this incredibly potent, transformative agent capable of perfecting matter.
But there's got to be more to it than that, right?
You're right, it goes deeper. He's talking about spiritual purification, enlightenment even. And you reach that not through some shortcut, but by mastering those alchemical principles we were talking about.
It's not about finding a literal stone then, but more about this internal transformation, which, if we're thinking back to his creation analogy, kind of suggests that understanding the universe and I don't know, maybe achieving enlightenment are more intertwined than we think.
You're right on the money. And that's where another of his key concepts comes in, the humid radical.
Okay, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, what exactly is the humid radical in Crasselame's view?
He describes it as this essential life force, hidden within everything, almost like a primordial energy, a vital essence driving growth and change.
So not just some passive ingredient, but an active force.
Absolutely. And here's the catch. Crasselame believed you couldn't just create it artificially in your little lab. It had to be understood, harnessed from nature itself.
So the potential's already there, we just need to know how to activate it.
Yeah.
But how do you do that? What's the catalyst?
He uses the analogy of fire. And no, not like setting your alchemy lab on fire. He talks about three distinct types: natural, unnatural, and then against nature. Each one has this crucial role in the alchemical process.
Okay, now I need some more explanation. What do these different types of fire really mean in his alchemical system?
Remember how we talked about those fundamental principles of the universe? This is Crasselame's way of explaining the different energetic processes happening, both in the alchemist's workshop and, well, everywhere else too.
So it's about understanding these forces, these fires, and then, what, learning to work with them. Sounds a little, I don't know, dangerous, maybe?
Oh, definitely. And Crasselame actually goes out of his way to call out some alchemists of his day for their, let's say, misguided approaches. He especially criticized those who relied on these really common substances like mercury or gold.
Really? I always think of those as central to alchemy. What was the problem?
That's just it. They were missing the point, focusing on the obvious stuff instead of the deeper principles at play.
So like a chef tossing a handful of salt into the dish without even tasting it.
Exactly. Crasselame believed that real alchemy wasn't about blindly following some recipe or searching for shortcuts. It was about cultivating a real, deep understanding of nature's principles and working with them. Observation, study, a discerning mind, all crucial.
Those are qualities that still resonate, even today, right? I mean, who doesn't need a discerning mind these days?
For sure. And that leads to a really interesting question. What does a true alchemist look like, according to Crasselame? What are the hallmarks?
And what about those alchemists he was criticizing? What were they doing wrong? What had Crasselame so fired up, so to speak?
He called them philosophasters. Not the nicest term, right?
So these philosophers, what were they doing that was so wrong in Crassellame's view?
Well, they were fixated on these superficial processes. They wanted to create something extraordinary, sure, but without putting in the work to understand those deeper principles we were just talking about. Like, he specifically called out those who relied too much on readily available substances.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, like common mercury or gold.
Those seem pretty central to alchemy, though.
That's exactly it. They were so focused on the end result, the gold, so to speak, they missed the point entirely.
They forgot to taste the dish while they were cooking.
Yes, precisely. And Crasselame was big on this. True alchemy wasn't about shortcuts. It was about this deep understanding, this harmony with nature's principles. Observation, careful study, a discerning mind. Those were the tools of a true alchemist.
And those are timeless, really, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, who couldn't use a more discerning mind these days? But it goes deeper than that, even. Because for Crasselame, a true alchemist wasn't just someone who could, whip up a magic potion.
It was about more than technical skill.
Way more. It was about aligning yourself with these natural principles. A true alchemist, according to Crasselame, possessed this profound understanding of the natural world, coupled with a keen sense of observation, and this is important, a willingness to learn not just from successes, but from mistakes too.
It's about the journey, then, not just the destination.
Exactly, and that actually ties back to his critique of those alchemists using those harsh, corrosive methods.
Oh, right. He wasn't a fan.
Not at all. He advocated for a gentler approach, subtle. An approach that worked with nature's rhythms.
It's like the difference between forcing a plant to grow faster versus giving it what it needs to thrive naturally.
A perfect analogy.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do you actually find that balance? How do you approach the work so delicately?
Does Crasselame offer any, practical guidance on that?
He does, but always with this very symbolic language. For example, he's really into the vessel you use for alchemical work.
The vessel. Like what it's made out of.
That, and more importantly, that it's carefully sealed. He was really adamant about that. No leaks. You had to contain the precious waters.
Those waters sound pretty important. What are they exactly?
Think of it as the transformative energy itself. You can't let that escape. Crasselame believed, you see, that alchemy wasn't just about the physical transformation of matter.
There was more.
It was about refining and purifying the alchemist's own inner being, too.
Okay, now this is getting really interesting. So, the sealed vessel. It's like a metaphor for the alchemist's own inner world. Their mind, their spirit. You have to cultivate that, protect it from distractions.
Precisely. And he doesn't stop there. He compares this whole process to the birth of a child.
Whoa, okay. How do we get from sealed vessels to childbirth?
Because it requires careful observation, intervention even, at each stage. He uses the analogy of a midwife. This delicate, careful hand guiding the whole process. Skill and sensitivity were both crucial.
So much for throwing a bunch of ingredients together and hoping for the best. It sounds like you need a deep understanding of the process itself, of what's happening inside that alchemical vessel.
Exactly. And that's where his whole interpretation of the three alchemical principles, sulfur, mercury, and salt, becomes really important.
Oh, we're finally getting to the good stuff. Okay, remind me again. What did those represent for Crasselame? It wasn't just about the actual physical substances, right?
Right. These were like archetypes representing different facets of the transformative process itself. Let's take sulfur, for example.
Okay, sulfur. What does that symbolize?
For Crasselame, sulfur was this active, fiery principle. Think of it like the animating force of life itself, the energy driving change, pushing for transformation, the spark that ignites everything. But also...
There's always a but, isn't there?
Well, fire can be destructive if it's not controlled, right? And Crasselame was very aware of that.
So how do you control the fire of sulfur?
It needs to be refined, purified, transformed from a destructive force into something that creates.
Which makes me think about those alchemists he criticized earlier. The ones using those corrosive methods. Were they, in a sense, misusing sulfur?
That's a great way to put it. They were creating imbalance instead of true transformation, and that's where mercury comes in.
Okay, mercury. Always a tricky one.
Right, but so essential. Crasselame associated mercury with the principle of transformation itself. Think about it. It's fluid, adaptable, constantly shifting forms.
Okay, I can see that. It sort of embodies change in a way.
Exactly. And Crasselame connected it to the mind, our amazing human capacity to learn, to adapt, to evolve.
It's like, don't be afraid to change, to be shaped by new experiences. But also, remember to balance that with the fire of your own will, your intentions.
You've got it. And then, of course, there's salt.
Salt, the quiet one of the bunch.
Not so fast. Salt was essential for Crasselame. He saw it as this stabilizing, grounding principle.
Okay, so it provides structure, prevents things from getting too chaotic.
Exactly. And he linked it to the body. That solidity, that resilience we need, but also the importance of purifying and strengthening ourselves to withstand, to support the entire process.
So it's like this. You need the fire of inspiration, the flexibility of the mind, but you also need this strong foundation. Otherwise, everything falls apart.
Exactly. It highlights just how holistic Crasselame's view of alchemy really was. It wasn't just about, tinkering around in the lab.
There was a deeper purpose.
Oh, absolutely. He was interested in the alchemists' own transformation, their spiritual growth, their personal journey.
It's incredible, isn't it? He weaves together these practical techniques with philosophy and then these spiritual metaphors. It's alchemy on a whole other level.
And that's where his whole concept of fixed sulfur comes in. He believed that within each of us, there's this hidden potential, this fixed sulfur, just waiting to be awakened.
Okay, I have to ask, fixed sulfur, what is that? Another one of his metaphors.
It's like our true essence, the most refined, the most us version of ourselves. But it's hidden, buried under layers of, well, you could say impurities, things holding us back.
And the alchemical process helps us chip away at that.
Exactly. Through study, self-reflection, and applying those alchemical principles, we can awaken that inner gold.
So it's about becoming alchemists of our own lives, in a sense.
Yeah. Precisely. And that journey, as we'll discuss more after the break, is what makes Crasselame's work so compelling, even today.
It really is remarkable when you think about it, this idea that we all have this potential, this fixed sulfur, just waiting to be awakened. It's a powerful idea.
It is, and it speaks to this very human desire, this urge we have to understand not just the world around us, but also our place in it, to strive for something more.
To find that fixed sulfur, but it makes you wonder, how do we actually do that? How do we even begin to uncover it?
Well, that's where Crasselame challenges us, because he doesn't offer some easy step-by-step guide, does he? There's no 5-step program for this. It's about embracing the unknown, diving headfirst into this alchemical process, trusting that with practice, with genuine effort, we can chip away at those layers.
It's about the journey, then, more than the destination.
Yes, and that's what makes Crasselame so relevant, even now. It's not about mastering some grand formula, but about this ongoing process of self-discovery, of transformation.
Of finding those fires within ourselves and learning how to work with them.
And that's really the beauty of alchemy, isn't it? It's this constant interplay, this dance between our inner world and the universe around us.
And that brings us back to the very title of Crasselame's work, La lumière sortant par soi-même des ténèbres. Light coming forth from darkness itself.
Because that's what we're talking about, really. This light that shines from within, that illuminates not just our own path, but I think, in a way, the world around us, too.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder Crasselame alchemical secrets. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking that light that shines from within.